Have you ever fished a lake that has the preponderance of dinks in it? When faced with something like that, what lures or techniques do you use to encourage those larger bites? Where would you look to find those larger fish? Where are they hanging out? Welcome to my channel, More Sporting. Thank you, my friend, for watching. I appreciate you. All right, so those are all questions I would love to have you comment about in the comment section. And I'm going to try to address most of those questions as we go throughout the video here. And the biggest fish that I caught for the entire trip was the last fish that I caught. So stick around till the end to see how big that last fish was. Lake Langlois is where we're at. This is a really, really small lake that could easily be overpowered with pressure. It's in Western Washington. You can look it up. This lake is absolutely packed full of bass. And you'll get to see all that as we go through this. And there's going to be some footage that shows you just how many bass you're going to see in this lake. Every time I've ever come here, all I've ever caught is dinks. Little teeny dinks. And my hubris got the better of me on this particular trip because I believed that I was going to be able to figure out where these larger fish are. I've been catching a lot of larger fish over the last year and a half, and I felt like now is the time for me to solve this lake. So stick around, let's see how I do. When I'm talking dinks, I mean small, like 6 to 8 inch fish. And occasionally I'm going to catch a 10-inch fish in here, but what I'm really looking for is those 15 to 20-inch fish. And that's really what I'm excited about. But I'm starting out here with a wacky worm, and I'm basically doing that because it's a large enough mouthful that I think I can weed out those, 6, 7-inch fish and maybe catch a lot more of those 8 to 10-inch fish. And hopefully find some of those, 15 to 18 inch, maybe even a 20-inch fish. That's really what we're after. That first fish, that's not exactly what the plan is. Now this cover here looks like it's a perfect spot for one of those big lunkers to be hanging out in. Anyone care to wager how long that fish was? I tell you, it wasn't a 15-incher. Boy, this laydown looks really good. That's some nice cover there. It's kind of hilarious that I bothered to pose with that fish. It's not easy to see from this angle right here, but as we get closer, you'll see that there's actually quite a bit of cover underneath the water here. That's what I was casting to.
Pretty good sized fish. Always cracks me up that these little teeny bass here follow you around.
It's true. Most of the time, you can just look into the water, and there's these little teeny bass, and they're all surrounding the kayak, staring at you. It's really disconcerting. I've been messing around with creating these dice-like lures. I call them whisker worms. This is just a piece of Senko that I added the whiskers to, and I thought, well, this is a good place to test them out to see what the fish in this lake think of them. And you see, I just nose hooked them with a guarded wacky worm hook, and we're gonna see how that works. I know this is a moment of weakness here. This thing is likely to catch every small fish that's in this lake, which isn't a big problem because that's what I've been catching anyway. So yeah, it's a moment of weakness. I'm just going to put this on here to see if I can catch some fish. So the wacky worm hook was on the nose, and I just got a lot of fish messing around with it, but I didn't get any hookups. So I'm like, that's it. I'm going to Texas rig one of these things up. I'm not sure if you were able to hear what I say in this clip here, but basically what I'm saying is that these things act like a weightless finesse jig. That's what they look like. That's the way they act. And, you know, they float down and their little whiskers wiggle back and forth, and it looks delicious. I've caught big fish on these, but not in here. Well, so far anyway. Yeah, you know, when I put the whisker worm on, I figured that was going to happen. It's just a little frustrating.
Well, the fish just seem to love this thing. I've not had it drop into a likely spot yet where the fish didn't pick it up. I haven't caught every single one, but man, they really seem to like it. Stupid fish. It's either caught on something or it's a good fish caught on something. Not a good fish.
Hey, I think now might be a good time to say, if you're still with me, how about giving me a like? I'd really appreciate that. And don't forget to comment down below.
You dipshit. How did you manage to get hooked on that hook? Don't believe that you're a big fish, but you acted like you might be.
All right, we're putting a full-size Senko back on. Enough catching these little super micro dinks. Hopefully I can catch some that are, I don't know, at least 10 inches? One can only hope.
Dumbass, you lost my worm. Ouch. Come here. Don't do that again.
To be honest, though, I got to tell you, my hope is kind of fading. It's been frustrating.
It'd be really cool if I could catch something bigger than 10 inches. Something bigger than 8 inches even. If I could catch a 10 incher, that'd be pretty cool. Well, at least you didn't lose the worm. Well past my
All right, this is an interesting spot here. There's like 4 or 5 logs that are all stacked up against the bank here, and it drops off really fast right here. I think that I tossed my worm in there. It's probably in 14 feet of water, and you can see the fish swimming around all around in the water there. You can see those are all bass, and you know, I noticed here that there's a bigger one in the group, and he eventually does bite.
Shit, I'm tangled up. Alright, this is the biggest one I've seen. And I've caught other ones just like him, so.
Okay, now look, I don't know if that's the biggest one, but that certainly isn't the smallest one. And that's the last fish I caught just because I had completely gotten fed up. You know, after 18, 19 fish that are all this size or smaller, it's really hard to keep your positivity. So I decided I was going to pack it in for the day, but I have a lot of stuff here I want to talk to you about. There's a lot of things that you can do to keep you from getting in this exact same situation. I want to go over that next. All right, we're going to the WDFW website here. We're going to open up the lake breakdown for Lake Langlois here, and they've got rainbow trout, kokanee, and largemouth bass. And that's a recipe for failure right there. There isn't a prey species in that lake. There's nothing that any of those fish can eat because the only thing that's likely to be spawning in there is the largemouth bass. And the trout that are in there are the stocker trout that they dump in there every year. And it says that there's kokanee in there, but I've never seen a kokanee come out of there. So there may be some in there, but just not a lot. And neither of those of the trout species there, salmon species, are going to be spawning in that lake. Not with any kind of significance. There's no creeks that feed that lake. So the only way that we're going to have those fish in there for the bass to feed on is if they're stocked. And you've seen the size of these bass. They're not large enough to eat the stocker trout. Now, the original, bucket biologist fish that they tossed in there might be big enough at this point that they could eat those trout or kokanee, and then they'd get really big. But that could have been 10 years ago, and those fish may or may not be with us any longer. So, yeah, this is not a great spot for looking for large fish. So if you want a spot where you're going to find large bass, then you're going to want to find a lake that has some sort of prey species in it, whether that's yellow perch, sunfish, shad, shiners, suckers, peamouth chubs, creek chubs, who knows? And some other species out there that those fish that those bass can feed on, and that can be trout and kokanee, but there has to be a spot where those fish are spawning that they can feed the lake. So, stay away from lakes that just have largemouth bass and rainbow trout in them, because they're almost certainly stocked rainbows, and almost certainly the bass aren't going to be large enough to eat the rainbows on average. Okay, so that's what you can do to avoid being in this situation. I also recorded a conversation that I had with another angler on the water, and just so you know that my experiences aren't unique, let's hear what he had to say.
You caught anything bigger than 10 inches?
No.
Ever in here?
What's that?
Ever in here?
I've caught a 1 pounder, but it was maybe it could have been 12.
Yeah.
But that was last year. Right now I'm just catching all little ones.
That's all I'm doing. Throwing it in some of the deepest, darkest, nastiest stuff. Yep. Pulling another little one out.
I know.
And that.
These big logs down below, and I said, I just drop down a single worm. I come back with a little one.
Yep. I've fished this for about 4 years, and it's been the exact same.
Really?
It's every year I pull these out. I'm like, well, there's got to be bigger ones. The ones that I pulled out last year have to have grown a little bit.
There are bigger ones somewhere. You just haven't been able to.
I have never been able to figure them out. That's why I asked.
I even tried going deep, going all the way down, and letting it sit. Nothing.
I was fishing last year, or the year before, I was fishing a drop shot at about 15, 20 feet and catching little ones.
Yeah.
And trout. Joe, I don't get it. Every year I think, oh, this will be the year where I'll find them.
I thought this would be the year too.
So you're going to look for a healthy fishery, someplace that has forage that the bass can eat and put a little bit of weight on every year. And that is not Lake Langlois. Okay, no more polka music, I promise, in this video anyway. So it's hard to take this serious. I caught 19 really small largemouth bass, and I'm pretty sure that the cause of that is that there just isn't any forage in this lake. There's no fry from the kokanee or trout because there's just no feeder streams. The only fish that would be possible for them to eat is additional bass, and even the crayfish, I don't think they're going to be in any numbers because this lake is so steeped bank and so deep. So not something that I think is promoting good fish health, and so I expect that all you're going to see is small bass or maybe a handful of larger ones, but generally speaking, they're going to be small. The only reason why you should come back to this lake is if you're bringing a child that you want to have them have a positive experience and catch some fish. All right, thank you very much for watching the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.